Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to one of our Hobby Memorial Library events. This is Banned Book Week. So, if you come into the library, we took all of our banned books and put them on tables and just come and see what's been banned over the years. You would be surprised what is on our tables. So, make sure you do that. We have our speakers all this week that are going to be talking about banned books, and we have our awesome librarian. Brandi Faulkner, and she is definitely a Game of Thrones geek. And she's going to talk to us today about the banned Game of Thrones. So, hey, Brandi.
So,
Hi. Take it away, Brandi.
okay, I'm gonna start my PowerPoint. Give me just a second. And let me. Do y'all see my PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of history regarding the author of Game of Thrones. He's not just the author of Game of Thrones. He's done a lot more than that. He's been working forever. Um, but in 2011, he was put on Time's 100 list of the most influential people in the world. He's also being a novelist. He is a screenwriter, TV producer, and an owner of a little uh, movie theater that still uses 35 millimeter film in Santa Fe, where he lives. So if you want to stalk him, you can go to Santa Fe. Because supposedly he still checks his own mail. I don't know that from personal experience of stalking him, but maybe if I go one day. Um, and an interesting thing about his screenwriting, he the old TV show from the late 80s, Beauty and the Beast, he was one of the screenwriters for that, and also The Outer Limits. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I think that's why Game of Thrones did really well at the beginning. People argue about it at the end. But, and he started out his career because writing didn't make him a lot of money. And so he got a job at a community college in Iowa. And he was an English and journalism major in the 70s. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then he became writer in residence. So he started making money on his writing. And among all of those other things, he's a contributor to a video games, two of them. One is Game of Thrones, but the other one came out last year, and it's called Elden Ring. And he was the one that did the writing for the world building. So it makes sense with if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, the world building on there is pretty amazing, and he takes a lot of it from history. So let's see. So these are my in the next few slides, it shows you where he got his ideas from, and then I'll go over the ones that are banned in different places. But he takes a lot from history to write a lot of his books. And in the first one, it's called The Wall. And if you've never read or seen Game of Thrones, it is basically a massive ice wall that goes across the north of the world, that world that they're in. 73 miles across, whereas the wall basically goes across, it blocks the north, what is the true north from the south, I guess. And but this was the Hadrian's Wall was the one that was a protective boundary between settled yet. It was a protective barrier for England or Britain at the time. Then the next one is the Red Wedding, and one of the saddest parts of the series, other than the direwolves dying. But the Red Wedding, or it resembles the Black Dinner, and this is actually pretty funny because it's a bunch of teenagers arguing over, you know, who's in charge of what. You have two teenagers, 16, 15-year-old boys that are basically in charge of Clan Douglas, and this is in Scotland. And then you have the ruler of Scotland at the time, and this is around 1440. But James II, he's a 10-year-old king. And so they're arguing over things, and, you know, what boys do. They talk to each other, yell at each other, say nasty things to each other. And so James, the king, he invites the two other boys to dinner, and they eat the Black Dinner. Clan Douglas got. So
Can you repeat what they eat? Because you froze up a little bit.
oh, you know how they stick the pig on the, you know, the whole pig on the table? That's basically what they did, but it was a bull's head, and it was just a symbol for them. It's like bread and salt. You serve that to welcome people to your home. So it's just symbols back then. Everything was symbols in the Middle Ages. And then the rest of Clan Douglas, after they ate that bull's head and got beheaded, it was basically Clan Douglas said, nope, not taking it, and they laid siege to Edinburgh Castle, which is where James II lived. So it turned out better for Clan Douglas because they were the ones that profited from it, not the king. And then finally, they always say winter is coming in the series, and if you watch the series, it looks like winter is there, but that's not their winter. Winter is more like resemble the Little Ice Age. The Little Ice Age lasted for about 500 years in basically Western Europe, England, France, all that. And the drop in temperature was about 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and which isn't much to us, but they were freezing their tails off from what I was reading. So it probably felt like a little ice age to them. Weather people are calling it these days. Any questions on that? No. I am going to now go to the next slide in the series. So you got you got the family names. Those are the big main families when you start the series. Rulers of the North, or the protectors of the North. Baratheons are the current kings, and the Lannisters are the warring. The Lannisters and Baratheons are connected by marriage, but they really don't get along. And the whole series is based on roses, and that was the Plantagenets and the Lancasters, or the House of York, I'm sorry. And so it's basically not a direct reflection of history, but it's a reflection of history, because you see all the different things that are happening. And Martin based all of his characters on historical people. So like Ned Stark, who's the main Stark of the main person of the Stark family, he is based on Richard III. And there's overlap with some of these characters. So you have Richard III, who was basically the last king of the Plantagenets. And I think the reason that Stannis Baratheon and Ned Stark are similar to Richard III is because they were so devoted to their duties, and you see that in the series. Then you have Catelyn Stark, who is in, I guess, real life Cecily Neville, and she was the mother of kings, Richard III and Edward IV, and she's a proud mother, and so that's the same as in the series. Catelyn Stark was a proud mother, and then you got Edward IV, and he marries a common series, which both die at the Red Wedding, but you don't have to watch. Sansa character in the series. She makes it out and she's stronger, but she's Elizabeth of York, who marries Henry VII. So she's the mother of Henry VIII. But they don't show her having kids, and they don't show Sansa having kids in the series. So anyway, and then you have Jon Snow. He gets. I hope everybody's seen Game of Thrones because I'm throwing out spoilers left and right. So I'm sorry. Thought about that. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to turn it off now. But Jon Snow, just like Julius Caesar, gets stabbed by his brothers, but he gets brought back to life, unlike Julius Caesar. But he is very much a people, because the way that they name bastards in the series, they give them names to do with the area. So we got Jon Snow, Snow because they're in the north and there's a lot of snow. And then Baratheon, rivers because they got a lot of rivers. Anyway, you get the picture. They name them after whatever landform or whatnot that's there. So we talked about Joffrey. Joffrey was a peach in this series. He was the one death I appreciated. He turned purple. So I've never been cheering for a death in my life, but somehow they got this actor to look just like Caligula. Like all the busts that you've seen of Caligula, they've got that down pat. I don't know what they did, but a little crazy and did horrible things. And that was basically Joffrey. But the reason here's another spoiler if you didn't know. Joffrey is not actually the son of Robert Baratheon. He is actually the son of a brother and sister. Yeah.
Starting to see why it was banned. Okay.
Yeah, he's the product of incest and incest in the books. That's kind of the whole story, because they were known to marry brother and sister, which you'll see in another family. They marry brother and sister, so it it was okay to them, I suppose, but it causes a lot of, we know now it causes a lot of issues with a child, mental or physical deformities. They never showed any physical deformities that were products of brother and sister, which is very strange, but yeah. But so anyway, he was like Caligula. He is also based on Edward Westminster, which I think Caligula is a better representation of him. And then Renly is the brother of Robert and Stannis, who I already talked about. And he was based on Richard Lionheart, which, you know, if you've seen what's that one cartoon that they did where they made all the British, like Richard Lionheart was a lion and then somebody was a snake. He was supposed to be very handsome and very boisterous and stuff. That's Renly. Renly is one of those that he was ready to go to battle, and I love these lights. but but yeah, and he wanted to take over after his brother died, and it didn't happen. Man, or I, well, I mean, he was king. Of course, he was a ladies' man, but in the series, he resembled more of the later in life Henry VIII because he was a very robust man, but he was a heavy drinker. He was just Henry VIII to a T. And he died of a horrible wound, just like Henry VIII did. Henry VIII, I think, it wasn't gout; it was something else. And but Robert Baratheon died of being gored by a boar. And then they ate the boar at a dinner per the request of Robert Baratheon. So, and you refer to everybody by their first and last name in this series. I don't know why they don't do like Robert the First or Ned the First. They go Ned Stark, Robert Baratheon, just so there. And Martin has a lot of characters, a lot, and so I think that might be another reason why they go by the first and last name so you can remember all these characters. The Lannisters, the lovely Lannisters. These are the siblings of the family. I didn't list any of the other family members, but you got Cersei, who is the wife of Robert Baratheon, and she is very similar to Catherine de Medici. And the reason she is because her family is the richest in all of Westeros. But she's because she loves her children, loves them, and she will take their side no matter what. And she does that throughout the series. That's the one redeeming factor about that woman, the only. Um, but she's married to not Stannis, Robert Baratheon is actually fathered by her brother Jaime Lannister, who, if you were gonna place a cartoon character of Jaime Lannister, if you've ever seen Shrek, it's the prince in there where he, does the hair. He has the beautiful blonde hair. They're known for their blonde hair, and they have a very close relationship because they're twins, which makes it even creepier because they're twins. Yeah. But then you have the other brother, Tyrion. Tyrion is very witty in the series, but he's also a dwarf. And the reason that Emperor Claudius was compared to him is because of the fact that Claudius was he had physical deformities. He had trouble, let's see, forget which one it was. Oh, he had issues of walking and things like that. And If you've seen people of short stature, they have issues with their back and their hips. Same kind of issue. And funny, uh, Emperor Claudius was the uncle of Caligula, just like Tyrion is the uncle of Joffrey. And but he became basically a right-hand man to the king and queen eventually. And he's very smart and very witty in the series. He's my favorite, by the way. But yeah, those are the main families. Now to the other families. We got the Targaryens. They're the ones that believed in marry your brother and sisters. You're good, which is gross. But they're all like the Lannisters have blonde hair. They had white, silver hair and purple eyes in the books. They didn't. They transferred over the white, silver hair, but not the purple eyes. I don't know if it was just production stuff. But Aegon Targaryen was William the Conqueror for obvious reasons because of he conquered Westeros. He came in and conquered Westeros. And then the Mad King Ares, he's like Charles VII, who also went a little crazy. He had I guess like any person in a royal family, they intermarry a lot, and so they always go crazy a little bit. And then we got Viserys, who in the series is a little. He has a complex. He thinks he's the most wonderful thing on the planet, and he is very much like. Let me see if I can say it right. Marcus Licinius, the Roman general, who basically helped transform the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. But Viserys didn't do much of any of that. He was basically what they called a beggar king. But I think his determination is what Martin based that on. Then Daenerys, who is the in Game of Thrones, she's based on Elizabeth I because although she does have children or has a child that dies, so she's basically single through the whole thing, but she has lovers on the side. Like they assume that Elizabeth I had. And then Cleopatra and Genghis Khan, because Genghis Khan, she went all over, I guess what you would consider like Africa and things like that, if you based Westeros on the real world. And she went in and took over all of these places and ruled there for a while. And she thought she was fair. She wasn't, but she thought she was very fair to the people. And then Cleopatra, because she was known to be very beautiful and she didn't have the two men after her like Cleopatra did. Then oh, and if you look at all the these are called sigils. Like you have the 3 dragons. There's I guess things about those families that you can see in their sigils. So the dragons, because the Targaryens are known to be dragon riders, which is pretty awesome. I want one of my own, but I haven't figured out how to get one, but I'm going to. I'm going to put eggs and everything. But you can see that they have different things. So like Targaryens, the dragons. Then you have the Greyjoys. This is a family that lives on a very rocky, craggy island, and they worship a sea god, kind of like, what's the sea god? Oh, I can't remember his name. They rule, or they worship that. And then you have the Tyrells, which I'll get to in a minute. But Theon, the families are very odd, especially the Greyjoys, because they don't believe in earning things. They believe in pillaging things, so they remind me of the Vikings in a way. They go and pillage, take your wives, take your money or whatever you have. So it's very much Viking like. Yeah, but Theon is more like George Plantagenet. So the story of Theon, uh, he was taken by the Starks when he was like, I would say, 8-ish years old, and he was raised by the Starks. And when you get to the beginning of the series, he's 20-ish, maybe a little younger. And so he's been a Stark for all this time. And that makes sense for his representation in history, which is George Plantagenet. Uh, so if you go back I'll go back to this one. So we have Cecily Neville and Richard III. If you look at those characters and then you look at George Plantagenet, he is the son of Cecily Neville and Richard III, Duke of York. So he's basically the son of those people and the brothers to all the or brother to all the children in the Stark family. And he just gets terrible treatment in the series. I'm not even going into detail because I don't think it's appropriate for this time of day, but it's terrible what happens to him. I mean, he loses body parts and not just the ones you see. We'll just go there. Yeah, but he lives through it. He lives through the whole series until the end. Another spoiler, sorry. And then finally, the Tyrells, they're the second richest family in Westeros. They live like in this beautiful area. Like, I'm trying to think. So if you think of like the Greek Isles, you know how it's so beautiful there. That's supposedly where they live, where it's all green and flowers and just beautiful. And you have the two children of the Tyrells, Marjorie and Loras Tyrell. And funny that Marjorie is supposed to be Anne Boleyn in this, which is Henry VIII's something wife, or I think second wife, who loses her head. He the actress that played Anne Boleyn in The Tudors also played Marjorie Tyrell in Game of Thrones. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if that was the plan or what, but yeah. She also resembles Mary of Teck. Mary of Teck was the queen or the consort of King Emperor George V. So she was, let's see, I'm trying to think of who her children were. Edward the VIII and George the VI. So she was the queen consort. So she wasn't actually the queen, but she got all the jewels. I hate when they do that in British culture. They don't actually give them the title, but because aren't they actually the queen? But anyway, I got off topic there. Sorry. Uh, but she resembles that because she marries one king who a Baratheon, and then she marries three kings throughout this whole series. She marries Renly Baratheon, then who is interested in her brother. Another story. Then she marries the Caligula. That's what I'm gonna call him from now. I love Joffrey, and then she marries Joffrey's brother when Joffrey dies. So she kind of does her thing, and but she's smart throughout the series because she knows what she's getting. She's getting to be queen, and that's what she wanted. And then Loras Tyrell is her brother, and he is the favorite of Edward II of England. And Loras Tyrell is like a knight. They don't call him knights in the series. They call him They give him the title of Sir, but they call him something else. I can't remember right now. But the reason I think that he is compared to Piers Gaveston is because of there were questions of the sexuality. So there was a lot. I mean, if you've never seen the series, there's a lot of sex, a lot of naked people, a lot of sex, and a lot of blood and death. I mean, it's the best combination on the planet. But yeah, that was one of the things about this. Although they have all of that, there was a I guess morality of some sort to it because they still, I don't know if that's called morality, but they still questioned whether you were gay or straight or whatever, and they had all the same things we have in in the world. They had prostitution and all that good stuff. Good stuff. I'm gonna stop now. But but yeah, that's the main families that they had in Westeros. There's other smaller families, but those are the main ones. I'm gonna get a drink really quick. These are groups of people that are in the series. The Night's Watch, they have to live at that wall that I showed at the beginning, which is an ice wall. They're basically the guards, and so they take on the qualities of the Knights Templar. They're celibate supposedly. They're brothers in action, and they all wear black because they're called the Black Crows, not like the band, but they call them crows north of the wall. Then you have the Dothraki, which interesting. The there's a whole language that has been created because of the show, and it's the Dothraki language. So I thought that was interesting. But they resemble the Huns. The Huns are the ones that went all over. I think they were in Eastern Europe and went over and conquered all these lands. And Khal Drogo, he married Daenerys, and he's this massive guy. He plays the actor who's the guy that played Khal Drogo. He's Aquaman now, so that should give you a reference. Can't think of his name. Jason Momoa, that's his name. But Attila the Hun is, I mean, that's the obvious thing there. And then you have the Unsullied. The Unsullied they were taken basically at birth or as young boys, and they were trained from boyhood all the way up to adulthood. They lost certain body parts like Theon Greyjoy, but they learned to not fear anything, not to be in pain. I don't know how you do that, but they resembled the Ottoman Janissaries. They were both the Ottoman Janissaries and the Unsullied were this elite group of warriors, and they were known all over. I mean, most people look to the battle plans of the Janissaries whenever they look to warriors like that. And the same for in Westeros. Now these are the oddballs out in the series. You got Melisandre. She's like a priestess, a red priestess is what they call her. In the books, they describe her very differently. But she resembles Rasputin, who was like a advisor to that family, the Russian Tsar and Tsarina. I can't remember the name of the family right now. She did the same thing. Basically, she influenced them to do things. Burning a child was one of the things she influenced. Burning the child at the stake alive, which is horrible. Then you got Brianna Tarr, who is very similar to Joan of Arc because she was just seemed like she was just pure and good, and of course she resembles her because she dresses like a man. And then you got Peter Baelish, who's also called Littlefinger, and he's like William Cecil, who is Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth the First advisor. So he is not as, I guess he's very similar um, to Littlefinger because he does do some shady stuff. He's very shady in this series, and William Cecil was known to be shady throughout his advisor duties. So all these people die mainly in the series, just so you know. And if you want to read the books, be prepared. Do not get attached to anyone. Um, that's just the whole thing about. I don't know why he does that, but Martin just wants you to not get attached to things. I think he's like teaching you lessons that you should have learned whenever you were young. Don't get attached to things because it could go away. Um, the book series have been banned for many different reasons, but of course it's, you know, there's lots of sex in it. In the TV series, I think it's more so, but in the books there is a lot of sex, but there's a lot of violence, a lot. I mean, there's battles here and there in the descriptions, and so the the whole series is called The World of Ice and Fire, or Ice and Fire, The Game of Thrones, and each book is named something different. So Game of Thrones isn't actually the name of the series; it's the name of the TV series, but the series of books has different names. So you got Winds of Winter, Game of Thrones, and they all mean something. To each book, just like any series does. World of Ice and Fire is this massive tome, and it's another one. And reasons, especially for I don't know, but it so it's been banned in a lot of prisons. Frisco Eyes school system for obvious reasons. I mean, I don't know if it's meant for children so much. It's cool. It has dragons, but there's a lot of other stuff besides the dragons. And then in St. Louis, same thing. The sexual materials, so they just don't even have it there. So I mean, in the libraries there. Um, Another, I guess, fun library, and we got the graphic novels, and this was a community college library, so it was fine. There were adults there, but I flipped open one page. It was Daenerys, the graphic novel. So somebody drew a completely naked woman, and we didn't know that it had that in there. But I mean, it's fine if you just have to be prepared for it, and I think it is not appropriate for schools where there's children because there's a lot of sex in there. But in high schools, I don't know if it should be banned, but it is banned in a lot of places, and it is for not for the violent reasons, for the sexual reasons. Any questions?
Let's see, Alyssa, does anybody have any questions? Because I have a lot.
Oh, okay, go for it. I'm ready. I'll stop
She,
sharing.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see if she's got any other
I'm
questions while
ready.
I ask.
I'm ready.
I have never read Game of Thrones.
Mhm.
And so I had no idea that it was literally history throughout and all these historical characters throughout. Could this possibly, if you look at it as the darker side of history that our history books do not talk about, but this information was, what was happening during the time of the Huns, and, losing limbs, and the royalty, and brother and sister, and all of that. Can you see the value in having a book like this?
Yes. I see value in pretty much every book, even if they're bad. Because when you have a series that comes out and it's very popular, it encourages people to read. Just like Harry Potter. People have been banning that book forever. But it encouraged children to read. So I think it's important. And also because it's a new world. I mean, you get to escape. It's literally a form of escapism when I read it. And then when I started doing the research on this, I found out how much history is involved and how much research George R. R. Martin did. So I think it is really important to the literary world, to just weirdos like me who want to read about stuff like that.
Well, and there's only so much you can sugarcoat history.
Mhm.
In history there is death, there is war, there is corruption, there are these life lesson things. Now, of course, as a parent, we have to decide what our children, or what we want to expose our children, and how much reality. But if we didn't have books like this, and sugar-coated like everything, which a lot of our history books,
Yes, they do.
or a little bit of sugar coating and everything, do you think that we as a society would lose some of our, what makes us human, and what we can relate to?
I think prepared for reality. I think that's the big thing because I mean, inherently, history prepares us for reality. You, if you didn't know, say we're talking about World War II, and if you didn't know what happened with the concentration camps, and you just thought it was a war, you if you know about what happened in those concentration camps and how evil some people can be, that prepares you for what might happen in the future. I mean, and of course, we're not going to have people like killing random people all the time, but it's a reality with us. I mean, just like we see the political culture right now, and you see that it's so strained, and it has to be an education for people, otherwise we'll just live with rose colored glasses, and then when it hits us, people are going to be so depressed. They're going to need therapy.
Well, and if we were all thinking the same way and doing the same way, we would be our own scary movie of Children of the Corn.
Yes, yeah,
We
we're
would.
just going to be a bunch of zombies.
You thought zombies, I thought Children of the Corn. Um, but
it's
we.
the it's a season for zombies and children of the corn.
Oh, okay. So, it's obviously, I mean, you are such a Game of Thrones guru.
Nerd.
Um,
I prefer
nerd.
nerd.
Do you feel that that this is something that should be available to anybody who wants to read it without shoving it down their throats?
Oh yeah, I mean, don't I know it's difficult for some people to read. Like I said, there's lots of characters, and I just went through not even half of the characters that are in the book series. And some people, it's not their thing. They like other stuff, but it's there for them if they want it. I think that's the thing. You put it out there, and if they want it, go for it. I mean, I avoided it for years and years because it's like that's it. He Martin loves to write sometimes. I have an issue with him because he's very he takes forever in between the books. So there's 2 books left in the series. And waiting, I think almost 5+ years now for the next book. It's, I mean, we're getting impatient, and I think fans do get impatient with that, but I think it should be available to whoever wants to read it. It shouldn't be banned. It really shouldn't. I mean, I get that there's sex in there, but guess what? There's sex in history. How do you think that future kings and queens were made? How do you think that that happened? I mean, then we have
Well,
Brown.
and one of the books that we have on our banned list is an actual Bible.
Oh
It
yeah, I
was on the
mean,
ban list. So
there's a,
it's in books.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's a prostitute in the Bible. I mean, every book can be banned if you want to look at it that way. If somebody has a problem with it, they can ban it. And I'm not sure if that's a good way to look at things. If you don't like it, it's you don't have to look. You don't have to read it, but don't ban it from other people reading it. That's the way I see it. If you don't want to read it, don't read it. If you don't want to watch the show, don't watch the show.
Good words there. Good words. Let me check. Alyssa, are you back with us? Were there any questions?
There are no questions right now.
Okay.
Sad day.
All righty. Well, Brandi, you're always, I love hearing, she is such a reader, and I just love hearing how much you really get into the literature and what you read. And she is also a history buff. So right up your line for both of your areas that you love. So
Yes.
thank you so much for visiting with us today. Guys, if you want to do any more talks about Game of Thrones, Brandi is the person at the library to come and talk with. And
And if you question my fanhood, that's my pop shelf of Game of Thrones.
told
I
you she was a geek.
I am a huge Game of Thrones fan, and there's also House of Dragon now. Just a plug there. I've read that book too, so it
All
has
right,
dragons.
you're gonna have all the Game of Thrones fans coming in.
I know.
Where's Brandi? We need to talk with Brandi.
Yeah, I'll talk up Game of Thrones.
Well, and speaking of banned books, tomorrow at noon, tune in because we're going to have Ash Garcia, another one of our librarians who is a graphic novels fan. And so he's going to be bringing all the graphic novels that have been banned, and he's going to talk about why they were banned. So, you guys are getting a chance to meet our librarians and to find their little quirks of what they love doing. And, again, we've got all these banned books on the tables. So, and then on Wednesday, we have some professors from our CTC communications department that's going to be talking about their favorite banned books. Yeah, we're just like, breaking norm here all week. Oh, and on Wednesday from 12:30 to 2 o'clock, please come over to the library because we are going to have Harker Heights Animal Shelter. Our clean animal shelter didn't have enough people to bring it, but make sure you visit their animal shelter as well. And they're going to bring all kinds of fun puppies, dogs, cats, whatever. We're hoping that we can help them get all of their little animals adopted. Plus, you have until tomorrow to turn in your pet contest entries for your photo contest. Go to the Hobby Memorial Library website, hit events and hit flyers, and there is a registration form for our horror contest, which is due by October 10th, our poetry slam, and it tells you where to send your pet photos. So we've got all that fun stuff going on, banned books going on. Library's just misbehaving like crazy over here. So we hope you guys will come on over. So thank you again, Brandi. And I'll see you at the library around the corner. Bye, guys. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you over here at the library. And Alyssa, if you will take us out. Thank you.